JR, Zach Guggenheim from Big Ten Football Talk here, breaking down the final game, Illinois at Nebraska. Zach, Illinois is ranked. Don't know if you've heard, 24th in the nation. Nebraska also ranked 22nd in the nation. Not a top 20 matchup, but top 25.
Yep.
I'm really excited for this game, Zach. I think that there are a lot of things that Nebraska does well, and there are a lot of things that Illinois does well. That's going to be very interesting to see how these two teams match up and how they go at each other. I have started with every single game so far. I didn't do that on purpose. I just get excited. So I am going to let you start with this game. Be the gracious host that I am.
Thank you. Um, I this is a really fascinating game because I think each team has, I think, strengths and weaknesses that really do pair well against each other, right? So I think Illinois secondary against Rayola is a really fascinating matchup. You've got a dynamic quarterback who's a freshman who really does get his first test, right? Colorado wasn't a test. I know Travis Hunter's all world, whatever. It wasn't a test. Just avoid that, right? So
It was a test for facing a couple NFL players, and can you hold them
yes,
in check? Are you good
yes,
enough to hold a couple NFL players in check?
right.
That was the test.
Yeah. It wasn't a test. Uh, so Illinois is a legitimate test. I think for Illinois, it's really a question is can this offensive line hold up against what might be a top 3 defensive line in the conference? If not top 3, top 5?
Yeah, I mean they're top 3, top 5 in the conference, and there's so many good defensive lines in the conference. That makes you good for top 10 in the nation, I think.
Yeah. So I think that's a really like it's a fun chess match, and I think the coaches are similar, right? Like I think Bielema is hard nosed guy. Obviously, did not have a great year last year, but in general, his track record has been hard nosed, Wisconsin style of offense. And Matt Rule, who's changing a culture. So I think it's a really fascinating game. I think you made a great point about this a week ago that Illinois' offensive line last week, they didn't hold up super well. And while I think part of that was sleepwalking after a big win against Kansas, they have not looked great the past couple weeks. And Kansas is not Nebraska. And that concerns me. And so I think Altmaier keeps him in the game for a while. I think he's able to make some plays. Pat Bryant will be the best receiver in this game. So I think he might make some
Really
plays.
better than Zachary Franklin.
Mm. Illinois has the better receivers in this game.
Illinois will have the best receiver in this game.
Yes. Okay. I think I actually am really high on Pat Bryant, but I appreciate you bringing up
No, I
Zachary
am too. I
Franklin.
am too. I just think
Yeah,
Zachary Franklin probably has the bigger name because he's been around so much. But go ahead. Sorry.
because he has the actual bigger name.
Yeah. Well, that too.
Sorry. Bad jokes are bad. Anyway, I think they are more dynamic on the perimeter. And I think that's going to give. I think it's going to be a fun matchup with Tommy Hill on the outside. I just think the running game is going to be too much for Nebraska. So I think it's close at half, but I think Nebraska takes over in the second half. I don't think this is a big Rayola game. I think this is a big Dante Dowdell game. I think at the end, Illinois they have to do too much in the passing game. I do think Altmaier throws a pick or maybe gets a sack fumble, not because he has a bad game, but I just think it's going to be tough with that offensive line.
Yeah, no, that was exactly where I was going to go with this as well. What's the offensive line for Illinois? We have a ton of comments in the chat. We'll get to you guys' comments here in just a minute. Sorry, guys, I'm still getting over my sickness, so my throat is drying out here every few minutes. But the offensive line for Illinois is a huge question mark, especially because of the defensive line for Nebraska and just how powerful they are. And I mean, the way that Nebraska plays their defense too, they can have guys coming at you from every single direction. It's a very well-run defense, a very creative way of putting pressure on the quarterback. They don't blitz a ton. If anybody's looked out there at my blitz rates that I put out every Wednesday morning, they don't blitz a ton, but they make it feel like they're blitzing almost every single
Yeah,
snap
simulated
because of how
pressure.
many guys are close to the line of scrimmage. And also how athletic they are, they can recover coming off the line of scrimmage. So you could see a play, and it's happened before, you could see a play where Nebraska has like 7 guys on the line of scrimmage, three defensive linemen or 4 defensive linemen and a few linebackers as well. Like all of your guys who are in the box, except for one, you always keep one linebacker back, are on the defensive line, and only 3 or 4 of them come. I mean, it's just the way that they operate things, and it's very impressive. And Tony White has coached this defense very, very well to make it so that can happen. And so my biggest thing is not only can Illinois block them, but is Illinois' offensive line going to be able to dissect what Nebraska is doing to know where that pressure is coming from? Because we've seen it happen. We saw it happen against Colorado's offensive line, where they brought 3 and they had a free rusher.
Hmm.
If you don't know football, like there's at least 5 guys blocking every single play. So when you bring 3 and one guy's free, that's no good. But that's the way Tony
Bad
White is scheming.
math.
Yeah, not good. Bad math for the offense. So, but before we get back to you, Zach, for your score prediction, I want to go through some of these comments here because I think they have some really good talking points to go through. Jason says Illinois has a line problem. Both are bad. Nebraska needs to keep the ball away from Illinois secondary, which is legit, and they'll be fine. I think the interior of Illinois' defensive line is fine. Their edge rushers, I can see a little bit of issues there, but I think the interior of the Illinois defensive line is fine.
Hmm.
But definitely that offensive line, like we were talking about.
Yeah.
Philip with the ILL, yes, we know we know you're rooting for the Illinois here, Philip, and we appreciate that. And Mr. Morris, he was here from the USC Michigan conversation. Fight on, fellas. Blessed Tuesday. Thank you, Mr. Morris, for being here. We
Thank you,
appreciate that.
sir.
Philip says freshman Rayola will make freshman mistakes against the best defense he's seen so far. This was another talking point I wanted to bring up to you, Zach.
Yep.
We haven't really seen Rayola make a ton of freshman mistakes. Again, you can bring up the competition. It's not been great, but
Yep.
still, it's common even against bad competition to
Yeah.
see freshmen make mistakes. However, Dylan Rayola only 1 pick so far this season. He's not had a whole bunch of, like we said, not a lot of freshman mistakes so far. Does he stay cool, calm, and collected enough? Or will the guys like Miles Scott, Xavier Scott, this ball hawking secondary that has been able to pick off, so many people that they've played against, are they going to bait him into those mistakes and really cost Nebraska?
I think they will bait him at least once, maybe twice, and I don't think it will cost Nebraska. Sean Garner is asking for who wins. I'll say I think Nebraska wins 24-13. I just think, and someone else had said Altmaier won't make the mistakes that Rayola will. Philip did, and I agree. I think Altmaier is going to be steady throughout this game. The problem is the structure is just going to be in chaos for a good chunk of this game for him. And so Rayola might make more mistakes. It's not going to matter because he's going to have the better support system overall. Like Altmaier is going to have to do a little bit more himself, and while I think the receivers are better, I think he's just going to be running for his life quite a bit tomorrow, or not tomorrow, on Friday. And I think that's what's going to make this game really difficult for Illinois.
Yeah, I'm torn. I can see a path for both teams to win this game. I can see the Illinois defense, freshman Rayola making mistakes. Rayola hasn't faced a defense that's good yet. I can see that path. I can also see the path of dominant Nebraska defense and that defensive line taking over and making, basically Luke Altmaier's life just hell for this game, right? I can see that
Mhm.
happening as well. I think ultimately what it comes down to, and this is what I always go back to whenever I'm at a standstill, is the trenches. Who's going to
Yep.
win in the trenches? I think Nebraska is going to do a better job of blocking for the run game. I think Nebraska is going to do a better job of protecting the quarterback, and I think Nebraska has the better defensive line. I'm not saying that, Dylan Rayola will be clean. I'm not saying that Dylan Rayola won't throw a pick or two, but I'm with you. I think that at the end of the day, Nebraska is going to win this game in the trenches. You're going to come away from this one and say Nebraska won this game in the trenches. And I think it's going to reflect that on the scoreboard. So for me,
Mhm.
I'm picking Nebraska 24-17 with the caveat, though, kind of like I did with the Minnesota Iowa game. Like if Illinois does capitalize on these turnovers and they are able to get some big plays against Nebraska, because say they have a long drive against Nebraska and they get a turnover and then they're able to come out there and score in just a few plays because the defense is gassed. Like if that kind of stuff happens, I could definitely see a path for Illinois to win. When I look at the game, that path is far less likely than strong trench play and a defense that is going to dominate your offensive line. And I don't like saying dominate because I think that gets used too much, but I just think this defensive line for Nebraska is that much better.
Yeah. One more point on that too, JR. It's in Lincoln. And sacks and pressures and turnovers for Nebraska are going to be that much bigger because that's going to get the crowd to stay in the game. I think if this game were in Champaign, I would at least have it closer. And I might even say I think Illinois might win because that stadium's a wind tunnel. I mean, it's insane how that wind swirls in there. And again, the crowd really does matter. That Nebraska's atmosphere for Colorado was insane. And it's going to be like that again for this game with a top 25 matchup on a Friday night. So I think the home field advantage, certain stadiums, it doesn't really matter. I think it's going to matter in this game.
I think it will too. I think these Nebraska fans are starving. I think they're going to bring the heat. And I think that it's going to be, I would not be surprised to see 3 or 4 false starts for Illinois in this game, just because of how much, like you think you've seen the whiteout at Penn State. I'm not saying it's going to be the whiteout heavy or something like that, but this could be one of the best atmospheres we see in college football this year, with those fans and how rabid they are. Let's get to some score predictions from the comments. Philip says Illinois 24-20. We're seeing some consistency here. Dave says Nebraska 24-10. So I think we're on the right path here with somebody scoring 24. David says 24-27. Illinois wins. Philip says Illinois getting 9 points at Nebraska is insane. Did I say that? No, I said 24-17. Did you say 9 points?
Well, I think he means the line. The line.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Sorry. I thought he meant they score that. Oh, and Kent was in here earlier. I passed up Kent's comment. He said, I'm buying an Altmaier jersey if Illinois wins. Self-imposed punishment for me being wrong about Illinois. Kent, you put your money where your mouth is, man. I appreciate it. I think you also probably just want an Altmaier jersey a little bit too. So
that might be true. Dude, I love Kent. Kent's the man.
Awesome. Dave says, I love Nebraska fans. They always show up. Even other team is, and they haven't committed her carry yet. Her carry yet?
I don't know what that means.
I believe you may have typoed it because the C is capitalized, but yeah, Dave, if you could clear that up, I appreciate it. Yeah, so I agree with Keith. Low scoring game, first team to 20 wins. And I think that first team to 20 will probably be Nebraska. But this is going to be an awesome game to watch. I mean, this is going to be probably one of my favorite games in the Big Ten to watch this year. I think USC and Michigan has the potential to be up there. Oh, here we go. Harry Carey. Haven't committed Harry Carey yet. There we go. Philip, bro casual, gets a throwback Altmaier jersey. Oh, here we go. And some stats from it's also their 400th sellout. They won 100, 200, and 300. Nebraska wins. I stole that stat from Twitter. I'm not giving credit. Sue me.
I think you just gave credit to Twitter.
Well, you give credit to all of Twitter. All of Twitter was out.
Yes, all of Twitter. That's fair. That's fair.
So, all right. Anything else in this game, Zach, you want to mention? I think we covered about all of it. The Illinois wide receivers are going to have to step up. It's going to have to be a big game for them. If the Illinois offensive line is able to pass protect better and get some better running game, that's going to be a huge for them. But overall, I think this is going to be a great game.
Yeah. I just think it's great that Illinois and Nebraska seem to be trending upward. Because I think
Yep,
we were concerned that maybe Bielema had, like, he wasn't going to be the right guy, which I've always felt like he's a great coach, as much as I don't always like him because of things that he did to Ohio State back in the day. Um,
understandable.
but like, I think he's a proven head coach in the Big Ten, and like I was really high on Matt Rule, and I feel like for Nebraska fans, I love seeing that Nebraska is trending in the right direction, because the past 7 years have been just awful for Nebraska fans, and I'm so happy that I think we have like a legitimate top 25 team this year, in this Nebraska team, and I think they're going to be a tough out throughout the season, regardless who they're playing.
I agree. I agree. This is going to be a very tough Nebraska team, and they got the right coach to do it too. Matt Rule
Yep.
is a fantastic head coach. My prediction, this is kind of a hot take. Oh, this is a hot take. This isn't kind of a hot take. Tell me how crazy I am, Zach. My prediction, if Matt Rule and Brett Bielema stick with their schools for the next 5, 10 years, I would not be surprised 5 years from now, your top 5 or 6 teams in the Big Ten are Ohio State, Nebraska, Illinois, Oregon, maybe USC or Penn State. I mean, if Lincoln Riley stays, probably USC, but there's always rumors about him with the NFL. I don't know how real those are, but at the same time, like James Franklin always has a Penn State up there, but is he going to stick around? We talked about him for the
Yep.
Florida job the other day.
Yep.
So, yeah, I think 2 of those teams out west are going to be consistently up there in the top 5, USC and Oregon. And I think Nebraska and Illinois could be a frequent top 5 team going forward.
Yeah. I buy Nebraska more than Illinois, but I'll say this. It is shocking that Illinois isn't in the conversation more often because of where they are.
Yeah.
Like, they're the state school in Illinois where Chicago is. You would think that that would be like, they can get the NIL going up there. Like, that's
And there's
not.
good talent in Chicago too. I mean, there's not
Yeah.
bad talent in Chicago.
It's just it's getting the right coach, and I think Brett Bielema can be the right coach.
Oh, he definitely can.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just he's probably gotta continue to adapt to the new world, but I think, I don't know if I would say top 5 for Illinois, but I think they should be a top half Big Ten team more often than not, and they haven't been.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they're building there. I mean, Lovey Smith plummeted that program.
Which was
What he
shocking.
did. Yeah.
It's shocking that he did
Yeah. Yeah.
so poorly.
Nobody saw that coming. Um, but like the way I look at it is Brett Bielema is just so underrated. He has
Yep.
so many connections with so many high school coaches. We're talking, I mean, Ohio State fans right now are concerned about TJ Alford. He's a linebacker out of Florida. And one of the concerns they have right now is Illinois. A lot of Ohio State fans have no idea why to be concerned about Illinois. Guess what? Brett Bielema knows the head coach down there at Vero Beach, and he has a connection. And Aaron Henry has been around the block too, and he has a connection with him as well.
Mhm.
So, like when you have a connection with the head coach, you have an in, and you can get one of the best players to consider your school. That's how they got the visit for TJ Alford to come up to Illinois, and why he's still slightly. I don't think it's as much as it was before, but still slightly considering them. Brett
Mhm.
Bielema is pretty underrated in the Big
Yep.
Ten. And I
Yep.
think once he brings Illinois to be a consistent top 5 team in the Big Ten, I'm not saying every single year, but like 2 out of 4, 2 out of 3 years, I think people are going to take notice a whole lot more and say, that's the Brett Bielema we knew who was at
Yep.
Wisconsin. And it took
Yeah.
him a little while to build it. But if he sticks with Illinois and he doesn't try to go off to Arkansas or something like that, I think that he's gonna remind people how good of a coach he is.
Yep. Oh yeah,
So
and I think he's already doing it. And I mean, you look at the schedule. You look at the schedule this season. Like, I don't know what I would predict for them, but they are going to be a tough out for everybody on their schedule, maybe with the exception of Oregon. And that's if Oregon continues to be who we thought they were going to be in preseason.
yeah, I mean, I saw some Illinois people tweeting that they could be 10-2, 9-3 this season, and I saw a bunch of other people saying like, "Oh no, you're crazy," and I was like, I'm not predicting it's going to happen, but
Yeah.
I'm not going to call him crazy for it."
Yeah, I mean, Penn State will be tough. Michigan will be tough, but it's not like that's not insurmountable. At
No,
Rutgers,
Illinois has
yeah,
played Michigan tough in the past. I
yeah,
mean, that's been a hard team. It's Illinois to Michigan has been Purdue to Ohio State. I mean,
hmm
probably not as many wins, but I don't know the complete history there, but
yeah.
a very tough team
This,
for Michigan to play.
yeah, and people like bowl eligibility. Like people will say, well, they're ranked 24th. Like they should be aiming for more than a bowl game. Remember, most people were thinking they would miss a bowl game this year.
Yeah.
So like going bowling is progress, and I think they're going to be better than 6-6.
I ranked them with the worst skill players in the Big Ten before they got Zachary Franklin, which
Yeah.
that was a bad decision. Pat Bryant. He showed me. So
Yeah.
yeah. All right. What's Dave saying? He says Brett Bammer is that a new nickname? Owns the Gophers. I do remember him beating up on the Gophers pretty good when he was at Wisconsin. I
Mhm.
don't know how many times they've played since he's been in Illinois, but I do remember him beating up on the Gophers pretty good. David French says, as an Illinois fan, we want to be competitive. We haven't been for so long. First step is getting a bowl every year. That's true. I've heard Sonny say that. He just wants to get to a bowl every single year. And
Yep.
I think they're on that path. I think last year was a bit of an anomaly for what you're going to normally see with Brett Bielema. But all I'm going to say, don't be surprised if you keep seeing Illinois get ranked,
Yep.
because it's probably going to be more often than not.
Yep.
So.